Pokemon Crystal Clear may be the best ROM hack I've ever played. This ROM hack was made by Shockslayer and crew and is a fantastic take on an open world Pokemon game. This ROM hack brought new life into the Generation 2 games. I absolutely love how they revisited Kanto and brought two regions together in the same game. And besides the remakes, Pokemon has never really tried to do this again. The main complaint that a lot of people have about Johto is it's very slow in progression. Like, it doesn't feel that rewarding to grind through all of the gyms and try to get to Kanto. Once you get there, you realize how big the game really is, and it's so fun at that point with all the post-game and new encounters, all of that stuff. But this combined region and the massive size of the world is kind of saved for only those who complete the entire Johto playthrough. Crystal Clear is awesome because it actually solves that problem. Being an open world format for Johto makes so much sense. You can start in any of the cities in either Johto or Kanto, which actually brings the world together so much better than it did in the original games. You could choose to start in Pallet Town like Red and Blue, or you could choose a random city like Olivine, like I did when I was testing out the Nuzlocke mechanics. I did a full dex completion of this game on stream, and I started in Goldenrod, which is a really cool experience because it's such a hub of Johto, and it gives you some really interesting possibilities. Even from the start, this game kicks off really strong. When you start the game, you're prompted to make a custom character. This could be anything from manga exclusive characters like Yellow, or even Rockets. You can customize the palettes and the colors of your character sprites as well as the bag, which just adds that extra complexity to the game that they just couldn't manage back when these were on Game Boy Color. Once you've decided on what you want your character and bag to look like, there are so many options for starters. There's 30 different options. There are some real deep cuts on this list. Of course, you can choose any of the Kanto or Johto starters. You could also choose Eevee, Houndour, and Porygon and have some really unique experiences that you wouldn't normally have with other starters. There are a bunch of babies that can be extra challenging to start with because of their very low stats. Maybe Elekid and Magby are actually pretty good though. There's also niche Pokemon like Smeargle and Shuckle that could just be really quirky to play with, and absolutely insanely challenging picks like Magikarp, Ditto, and Unknown. Once you're into the game, you can even modify the individual RGB values for your Pokemon in your party, meaning that they can have custom colors and you can make them look however you want, even if they're not shiny. Plus, on top of that, when you open up the stats from your party screen for any of your Pokemon that you're carrying, you can see new values such as the hidden values like happiness, DVs, and the hidden power stats for each Pokemon. Not only is this just an extra level of transparency we don't get with Pokemon, it really helps if you're doing something like a serious Nuzlocke or a challenge run where you have to have very optimized Pokemon. The game's even designed to give you built-in soft resetting for your starter or other gift Pokemon to make sure you get the absolute best for your team. And that's just getting started, because the gyms are incredible in this ROM hack. You can battle the gyms in any order. That obviously makes sense for an open world game. However, the scaling of the gyms just really impressed me. The first gym will always start around level 10, and each gym badge that you get will modify the following gym's difficulty, but not only the difficulty or the level, but even the Pokemon choices that the gym leader makes can change. In fact, they can even get so strong as to have legendary Pokemon like Faulkner having a Zapdos. It adds so much more rewarding gameplay in the gyms, and it makes it a lot of fun to see what gym leaders you can challenge at what points, and you can even replay those battles. So if you had battled a gym at number 4, for example, and you want to go back at number 8 or 9 just to see what they would have had, you can rebattle and totally do that. Since you can battle any gym in any order, does that mean you can basically go wherever you want and do whatever you want in this game? Pretty much. They've added a lot of new overworld bridges and ferry systems to get you between areas that normally would take either longer to get to or are blocked off by HMs. For example, you can get between Kanto and Johto with either using Fly or even just bridges to walk between. This way, you're actually not blocked off from either region at any point in the game, really. Which is really cool because you get to see the gyms and the regions actually have symmetry and go together cohesively, and you can travel way faster between them. If you're like me, you can start traveling to random cities in random order just to see how the experience goes, and it's a lot of fun. If you decide to start on Sandwood or Cinnabar, normally you'd be stuck there, but the new fast ferry system allows you to travel out of those cities and off of those islands and help you move forward in the playthrough even if you choose those really niche locations. Other changes to the overworld include old Kanto maps that were brought back into Generation 2. These regions were cut in order to shrink the region down just slightly and make it work for a Game Boy setting, but now with the available memory you can add those back in, and they did. They even added entirely new areas like a Moltres Chamber, a Mount Mortar Peaks area, which has new NPCs and new available Pokemon. There's even an Ace Trainer HQ giving you more backstory and background on these Ace Trainers you see throughout the game, as well as Cherry Grove Bay Caves that have secret encounters, including one with Shock Slater himself. Possibly my favorite improvement for this entire ROM hack is the Pokédex. The Pokédex is absolutely insane in this game. Not only is it way easier to track down and find Pokemon you're looking for, it has full information about any Pokemon's move pool, including level up sets, TM lists, compatible HMs, and egg moves. The Pokédex also has new upgraded location maps that show you the exact encounter percent for new Pokemon in the area and can help you really look for those rare catches in the most efficient way. So you're not grinding for a 1% encounter in one area when maybe it's a 5 or 10% encounter in a different area. There's also options to disable the requirement to actually see the Pokemon in order to find it in the Pokédex. You can also make a lot of other changes in there to make it kind of suitable to your needs. In addition to that, there's a new tracking and chaining feature that they added that helps both track footprints for the Pokemon, which is a really cool feature, so that you can find them a little bit more easily. You can also knock out or catch a Pokemon repeatedly in order to build up a chain to actually increase the encounter chance and the shiny rate for each Pokemon. A necessary addition with the new open world is a thing they call residences, which is basically your house. So instead of starting at, your mom's house like in most Pokemon games, you can start with a residence in any town. These are full buildings that you can actually decorate and change depending on what you want to see. Each house in each city is also unique, and some of them are super, super cool, like the one in Olivine being at the top of the lighthouse. You can even purchase decorations for your house in a new bazaar location in Mahogany Town. What makes this useful is you can actually fast travel back to your home from anywhere in the overworld, which means that you can go back and heal or access the PC way quicker, and it can actually help in a real pinch when you are stuck somewhere. There's a whole laundry list of new quality of life improvements they've added to this game, including new menu icons that are custom for each Pokemon. I absolutely love this. I believe that they're the same that they use for the follower sprites for each Pokemon. Having the little Pokemon display in the menu, as well as being able to have a follower like you did in Generation 4 when they remade these games, is just such a nice addition to the world. And frankly, they look really, really good in the Game Boy graphics. I actually really love that they kept so much of those graphics and things intact while adding these little improvements. Other things they added were things like running shoes and added options to speed up gameplay, like quick encounter, continue, or always running from battles. And these things help speed up the gameplay if you're trying to get through, for example, on a stream. There's other little modifications they made, like when you heal at Poke Centers, you actually face back toward the door instead of accidentally facing the nurse and triggering the Poke Center dialogue again, as well as things like poison stopping in the overworld at 1 HP, and the HP beeping when you're low HP can be turned off. Those little things you might not really notice them being gone, but it solves a little bit of frustration from some of these Game Boy games. And overall, Shock Slayer and team improved palettes and made everything just look so nice while being true to the Game Boy mechanics. While they didn't change any of the moves from Generation 2, they did add a bunch of move tutors as NPCs in several locations throughout the game. One example is a gentleman in the radio tower that can teach you a bunch of new moves, but maybe my favorite is making the NPC in front of the Goldenrod Game Corner that teaches you Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower is actually there all the time, and you can pay him just with regular money instead of coins, making it way more efficient to actually access those moves. I believe this is Bill's dad in the lore, and he really can be a pain in a regular playthrough since he's only there occasionally, and it costs so much money for these moves. That may make the game a little easier, but between the gym battles being ramped up, as well as a bunch of new NPC battles, the actual battles themselves can be very tough. In fact, I accidentally ran into some NPCs and underestimated them and paid the price desperately in my streams when I was playing this live. Perhaps the most notable NPC to be added to the games is Shock Slater himself. This is the creator of the ROM hack, and he has a very impressive team as a final battle after the entire post-game is complete. And I do think that this game really invites playing even into the post-game. It has remarkable replayability for a Game Boy game. I myself played through as a Dex completion run. This was super fun because you can actually catch all the original 251 in Kanto and Johto throughout this game. Plus, with the new Pokédex improvements, it actually makes it a way more enjoyable experience to hunt these Pokemon down. On top of that, there's a Nuzlocke mode, which I tried out briefly, I do recommend getting a guide if you're going to try to Nuzlocke this game because it is pretty different in level curve to Johto as it would normally be. The scaling gyms can really make things more difficult and a lot of the NPCs are very tricky. So if you run into somebody a little too early like I did in my run, it can quickly end a Nuzlocke. There are a bunch of Nuzlocking features built in. I do think this game was more intended to be an open world kind of casual experience, dex completion type of thing. I do think it would make for a good Nuzlocke. You would just have to know what you're doing. I believe that there's a full Discord and community around this game though, so you can get a bunch of tips and guides through there. On top of that, there's a new game plus mode, which even adds more difficulty on top of these already tough gyms. I think what brings me the most joy in all of this ROM hack is that it still looks and plays exactly like Gen 2. They stayed extremely true not only to the original Pokemon, but to the original moves and all of the original mechanics of these games. In fact, it's actually confirmed to work with Pokemon Stadium 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal versions, as well as Red, Blue, and Yellow versions via the time capsule. It fully runs and acts much like an actual Pokemon Crystal game should. It keeps as much of the features and the data intact as possible. I have the overlay with the Pokemon cards that I often play with on the channel, and I just ran it like regular Crystal version, and it worked wonderfully. And that just shows how careful they were preserving the data and the original features of Crystal version. I do think that Pokemon Crystal Clear is the best Gen 2 ROM hack out there, at least for me. I really love the open world kind of casual adventure that this game encourages. It really suits my playstyle and how I like to enjoy these retro games, and it brings a level of difficulty that I think is pretty solid, and I really enjoyed playing. Now, is it as competitively viable as like something like Crystal Legacy? Probably not, but it's still a heck of an experience that I really think that you should try out. And you can join my Discord if you have any questions about how to set that up. I can also point you to their Discord, but Crystal Clear is fantastic. I probably didn't hit every single new feature. It's nearly impossible with a game this large. But for now, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't for more Pokemon content, and I will see you soon. Have a good one.